What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and this is my preview and predictions episode for the 2024 King and Queen of the Ring. Now, it's been a while since we got this tournament. I believe late 2021 was the last time we saw it take place in Saudi, actually, as we'll see it Saturday afternoon here in the U.S., and the finals for the men over there was Finn Balor versus Xavier Woods, where Xavier Woods became the King of the Ring. And for the women, when it was the Queen's Crown tournament, we saw Zelina Vega defeat Doudrop, now Piper Niven. Thank God they did that name change. She got her name back, and we got to see Queen Zelina. So that was a lot of fun, pretty good show, and I'm really looking forward to this Saturday. It's a 5-match card. 3 titles will be on the line. Cody's WWE Championship. We will see another champion in that match, but his title, however, we found out last week, will not be on the line. That's Logan Paul's United States Championship. We'll get a triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship, where champion Sami Zayn will defend against Big Bronson Reed, as well as Alpha Academy's leader, if you want to call him that. The people that are with him now, Akira Tozawa, Otis, Maxine Dupree, might say otherwise, but we're going to get to that later, too. Got some interesting tidbits this past Monday on Raw about where the future of Chad Gable and that stable are potentially headed. So we have a big triple threat match for Sami's title there. And then the other title that's on the line, we're going to see Becky Lynch defending her Women's World Championship against Liv Morgan and her revenge tour. Will she be able to take down big-time Bex? You know, Liv always seems to get so close, yet so far. I mean, she had a pretty solid 2022 at Money in the Bank, right? Early July of 2022, winning Money in the Bank. Then later that night, cashing in on Ronda Rousey, becoming the SmackDown Women's Champion for, I want to say, a little over 3 months until losing to Ronda. I believe it was at Extreme Rules in October of 2022. So got a lot to chime in about here. Very interested to see what's going to take place. And of course, the other 2 matches that we'll see take place on Saturday are the finals for the King of the Ring tournament and the finals for the Queen of the Ring tournament. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, I'm recording this episode prior to Friday Night SmackDown, so we're going to have to guess who's going to make it out of the semifinals from SmackDown for the women. You know, we got Nia Jax versus Bianca Belair. For the men, we have Randy Orton versus Tama Tonga. So I'm going to give you my predictions as far as who's coming out of each of those matches Friday night. And then, of course, I'm going to give you my prediction of who's going to win the final on Saturday. So before we get started with these predictions, again, we have the King and the Queen of the Ring taking place this Saturday in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia at the Jeddah Superdome. Now, we've seen many events in Saudi the past couple of years. I believe it was a 10-year agreement Saudi has with WWE and vice versa. WWE first went there shortly after WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans. I believe it was literally a matter of weeks after it, if that. We got to see the greatest Royal Rumble. I know a lot of us remember the most notable moment of the night was when Titus O'Neil was making his way down for that match, and his momentum took him under the ring. Michael Cole, Corey Graves, they could not catch their breath. I know I couldn't either. They replayed it many times. They actually even Mattel put out an action figure a couple of years ago for Titus O'Neil, and it even comes with the accessory of a T-shirt with the greatest Royal Rumble on it. And I don't believe I have that one. I have an old action figure battle pack with him and Darren Young, the Primetime Players. But I'd like to get my hands on that one because what a funny moment that was. And that was the introduction for WWE making their way to Saudi Arabia. So here we are. It's got to be somewhere along the lines of 8 to 10 shows later. They go there at least 2-3 times a year. We've seen, again, the greatest Royal Rumble. I don't believe they've had another one since then. We've seen the Super Showdown once or twice. We've seen countless crown jewels, typically in the beginning of November. I believe that was the last time they were there. Without further ado, let's get to the first match that I want to get to here, and it's going to be the women's match, the Queen of the Ring final. Now, before we get to the final, as I mentioned, we don't know at this very moment in time who's going to come out of SmackDown. That semifinal is set to take place Friday night between the EST of WWE, Bianca Belair, and Nia Jax. Now, personally, I'm a big fan of Bianca Belair. I like what Nia Jax has done since her return to the company a little over a year and a half ago. She's done very good. She's proved a lot of the haters, the doubters wrong. It's been said for very long that Nia was potentially a hazard in the ring, dangerous, hurting many women and during the matches, and you really haven't seen any of that since she's been back. And not only has she been working much safer, but I think she's honestly been enjoyable to watch, whether it's a promo, a segment, her demeanor to the fans, obviously to all her opponents. And I just think she's done great work in and out of the ring. So as much as I like Bianca Belair here, you got to think of who came out of the semifinal on Monday Night Raw this past Monday. We had a pretty good matchup between Io Sky and Lyra Valkyria. Now, as I said on the Raw preview, I was personally hoping to see Io Sky on this final. Selfishly, I'm a big fan of her. I do like Lyra, I really do, but I don't know. I just want to see Io in this final, but as I thought would take place, Lyra Valkyria got the win, so she's in the final. She's already punched her ticket to Saudi there as we speak, and so she's waiting to see who's going to come out of this matchup between Bianca Belair and Nia Jax. I'm going to have to go with Nia Jax. I think that's what makes sense. You're going to get this big-time heel in Nia versus the underdog, I guess you could say, being that Lyra Valkyria has only been on the main roster for a couple of weeks since being drafted from NXT, former NXT champion. So this is going to be a fun match. Nia, Lyra. I was, again, personally hoping for Io Sky versus Bianca Belair, getting a rematch of last May of those two for Bianca's title in Puerto Rico at Backlash. Fans were going crazy for it. Fantastic match. One of my favorite women's matches of all of 2023 easily. And I know I'm not the only one that thinks that. So I'm going to have to go with Nia Jax winning the whole thing. I think it does no harm to Lyra, not just because she's undersized in this matchup. But look, again, she's barely been on Raw for a month, and she already, has shown people and proven herself that, she was capable of making it to the finals of this Queen of the Ring tournament on a PLE, this pay-per-view in Saudi. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that outside of, vying for a championship title. So, Lyra, there's, no sweat. If she loses this matchup, she's not really expected to win, regardless who she goes up against, whether it's Bianca Belair, even who it is. But I do think Nia does defeat Bianca on Friday, and we get Lyra Valkyria versus Nia Jax on Saturday. And Nia Jax, that's who I'm going with to become Queen of the Ring. Now let's head over to the men's side of things. But first, as I just mentioned before, I figured this was the 8th or had to be around 8, 9, 10 times that WWE has went to Saudi Arabia. In fact, that's true. This is actually the 11th time since April 2018 WWE has made their way to Saudi, and this is the first time since 2015 that WWE is holding an official King of the Ring and treating it in a pay-per-view fashion. We've seen the tournament take place many times over the years, just on their weekly episodic television shows, Raw, SmackDown, and I was never really a fan of that. I'm old school. I'm golden era. I like to see the majority of the tournament honestly take place on a PLE, on that pay-per-view, King of the Ring, at least, the quarters or at least the semis and the finals. But pretty much they've been doing it on their weekly shows. I remember Baron Corbin and Chad Gable going back and forth when Chad Gable was Shorty G. And again, the most recent tournament prior to this year, when they did it in 2021, they did the whole tournament on TV. And they're doing it, obviously, the same way this time as well, where they only showed the finals in late 2021 on whatever the name of the pay-per-view was at the time. But again, here at least we got this one being called King of the Ring, King and Queen of the Ring officially, which is big for the women's side, like I said as well. So it's good, and I hope they continue to do this annually. Last year when they were in Saudi, same time in May, it was originally supposed to be the King of the Ring. And for whatever reason, it was changed to Night of Champions. And so that was what we got there. And so I'm glad that we got this. And so let's jump over to the men's side of things and this King of the Ring final. Now, again, much like the women, we don't know who is coming out of the SmackDown side of things. That semifinal matchup is set to take place Friday night between Randy Orton and the Bloodlines, Tama Tonga. Now, let's jump back to this past Monday real quick, right? We had the ring general Gunther versus main event Jey Uso. It's a pretty good match. Gunther got the victory. I was ecstatic to see that. Love Jey Uso. But this kind of tournament, it fits his persona, his demeanor, his character, and so on. Gunther going to the finals of King of the Ring only makes sense, which he should win, by the way, too, but we'll get to that in just a minute. And so when we were going into that Monday night, I said, I have a very eerie, sneaky suspicion that they may go with Jey Uso, and I didn't like it. I said this should be Gunther's because I was leaning towards, it looked like WWE was heading towards from Raw and SmackDown, Old bloodline versus new bloodline. Looked like they were going with potentially Jey Uso versus Tama Tonga, which, look, Tama Tonga may very well still win this Friday, may defeat Randy Orton, and may go into that final against Gunther. Personally, I don't see that happening now, but I thought it was a sure shot. I thought, look, if Jey wins this match, it's a foregone conclusion. But it looks like they're not going that route, thankfully. And Randy Orton, with that being said, should win. Definitely. So even though the last couple of weeks in the tournament, Tama Tonga was able to get by, past Angelo Dawkins, past LA Knight, I believe he faced last week, with some sneaky tactics, Solo Sikoa, Tonga Loa, Paul Heyman, all of them on the outside, interfering in one way or another. And so they could very well do that again. But I see Randy finding a way to get the victory. It's a little, I don't know, what could you say? He got them back for a couple of weeks ago, I guess, when they lost at Backlash. You know, him and Kevin Owens. They lost to Tama Tonga and Solo Sikoa due to the fact that Tonga Loa debuted and interfered, and that's what happens. So Randy Orton gets the win here. He goes on to face Gunther Saturday, King and Queen of the Ring tournament in that final. And who's going to be the King of the Ring? I'm going to have to go with Gunther. I think that's only right. You know, I'd love to see Randy Orton get the win and win the whole tournament. He's made it known at the very beginning of this tournament that King of the Ring is one of the very few things in WWE that's eluded him. He's got an incredible, impressive resume, 20-plus years with the company or so, and he's done just about everything except win King of the Ring. And although he is probably going to make it to the final, it doesn't look like he's going to get the victory, Gunther should win. He's the future, right? And it's a nice way for him to rebound after that loss at WrestleMania 40 after an incredible, historic, longest reigning Intercontinental Champion. And so that's what I see taking place. Gunther gets the win, propels that momentum for him into the summertime, potentially becoming world champion at some point. Maybe Bash in Berlin come August. He dethrones the likes of Damian Priest, or if somebody else should win it in between that time. All right, so now we got the Women's World Championship match. We have the man Becky Lynch defending her title against Liv Morgan. Now, Liv's been on a tear, quite literally. She put Rhea Ripley on the shelf immediately following WrestleMania 40. Rhea Ripley had to vacate her title, unfortunately. And so we got a battle royal out of that the following week, where the last two members of that battle royale were who else but Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan. Becky Lynch found a way to get the job done, and so that's why she's been champion for the past month. Now, personally, I would love to see Becky Lynch retain. Nothing against Liv Morgan. She's a Jersey girl, you know. But at the end of the day, I'm a big fan of Becky. Would love to see her continue her reign into the summer, but I really don't think that's in the plans. Again, Becky lost to Rhea at WrestleMania 40. That was supposed to be it. Done deal, signed, sealed, delivered. Rhea Ripley, at minimum, was going into the summer as champion. Was she going to drop at the likes of Clash at the Castle or Money in the Bank or potentially even SummerSlam? Perhaps. To who? The returning Liv Morgan? Likely. But who knows? Who's to say? So, by default, we might be seeing back-to-back transitional champions until Mommy, a.k.a. Rhea Ripley, is back. We may be seeing Becky Lynch only holding this title for the better part of a month. She may be dropping this Saturday at King and Queen of the Ring in this title match against Liv Morgan. If Liv is to win, let's just fast forward a little bit. If Liv is to win this match against Becky, she'll then hold the title, obviously, until Rhea Ripley comes back. Then, here we have it, those two have a feud. And so the irony is, Rhea Ripley was likely going to drop to Liv, maybe, at some point in time this summer, maybe into the early fall. And being that she had to vacate her title, unfortunately, she obviously could not then drop to Liv. And now Liv may very well be the one who ends up dropping to Rhea sooner than later to get her title back. Because the bottom line is this. Before year's end, and maybe even before going into the fall months, Rhea Ripley is getting her championship back. That's a foregone conclusion. So now, again, back to focusing on who's going to come out with the victory here. Becky Lynch, Liv Morgan. Again, I'd love to see Becky win. I have a funny feeling, though, that Liv is going to win. And again, two transitional champions in a very short time. That's just how it's going to go. Becky, love to see her retain. I don't think it's happening. Liv's going to win. And I think Liv could drop as soon as her first match with Rhea. Now, when is Rhea set to return? She's already been out, 5 weeks? I believe the injury she has may be 2 to 3 months. I want to say it's in that ballpark, that range. So let's just say, I don't know, Rhea's back first week of July. What's that? Money in the Bank? So maybe that's where Rhea returns, and then it sparks their feud for their first official match taking place at SummerSlam. I think at minimum, that will be the latest those two cross paths in a match. SummerSlam could be the rematch. They might have their first match at Money in the Bank, or who knows, depending upon when Rhea returns. So simply put, Liv Morgan will win this match against Becky Lynch and hold that title, keep it warm for Mommy. And whenever Mommy returns, I don't know if she's necessarily going to beat Liv on the first try, though. I don't want to look too far ahead here. But I do think that on the second attempt, likely, Rhea Ripley will then get her title back from Liv Morgan. But Liv Morgan and new Women's World Champion. Now we have a triple threat match here for the Intercontinental Championship. Sami Zayn defending against Chad Gable and Bronson Reed. Now this past Monday on Raw, we saw a singles match between Chad Gable, Sami Zayn. Obviously it was a non-title bout where Chad Gable got the victory due to the interference of Otis. I don't know why Otis seems to continue to help one Chad Gable. You could say the same for Akira Tozawa, even Maxine Dupree. Chad has done nothing the past month but belittle all three of them, making them feel like nothing, which is going to take me to my next point in just a matter of moments, is where I see the future of the Alpha Academy heading, and not just stating the obvious as far as the three of them leaving his side, turning on him. Could be as early as this weekend or the next episode of Raw, who knows. But who will be joining Chad Gable? We got a little bit of foreshadowing this past Monday on Raw, who the three people will be that are going to replace Otis, Akira, and Maxine. But before I get to that, let's talk about this match here. So this is a match where we know it's going to be good, but we also know that Sami Zayn is not losing. He just ended the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all times. Incredible, nearly 2-year reign. Barely a month and a half ago, WrestleMania 40. And so he's not going to drop just yet. I think the earliest we see Sami Zayn drop this title, probably August, early August. What's that, SummerSlam, August 3rd. So maybe then. By then, it's nearly 4 months, which isn't an incredible reign, but you know what? It's respectable. It's commendable. In between then, I'm sure he'll have some solid title defenses, including this one on PLEs, on Monday Night Raw. And so he could chalk it up to that and be happy, he was able to succeed to a respectable point. But this just wouldn't make sense for him to drop now. Again, two formidable opponents, a huge big man. They call him Big Bronson Reed, right? He's something else. Seeing him do his tsunami splash off the top rope is a scary thing. I would not want to be the recipient of that ever. And Chad Gable, just a submission magician, right? He's a technical wrestler. He's a fantastic ground game. And somebody who I was hoping to see win the Intercontinental Championship, as I mentioned, earlier this year. Even into the fall, winter months, I was saying, man, I'd love nothing more than to see Chad Gable get redemption, get a rematch, an opportunity against Gunther, and dethrone him. And that would have been special. But anyway, that didn't happen, and so now we get this heel version of Chad Gable. And so simply put, I'm going to go with Sami Zayn retaining his Intercontinental Championship. And so that is that. Now, before I get to the fifth and final match, which is the match between Cody Rhodes and Logan Paul for Cody's undisputed WWE Championship. Again, Logan is not defending his United States Championship. We'll get to that, more of that in a little bit. But now let's get to this past Monday on Raw. There was a fatal four-way tag team matchup where we saw Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark get the victory. They may even have this title match take place this Friday in Saudi Arabia against Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. I know Jade and Bianca were promoted on this King and Queen of the Ring poster, but I found it odd that they don't have a match on the show Saturday. So maybe they're just going to have that match take place Friday night in front of that crowd. And so it's pretty much like, preview to the movie. They're still part of the whole weekend festivities and event. Either or, The one who took the pin against Zoe and Shayna was Maxine Dupree. Now, I got to mention, when they were on their way to the ring on Monday night, Ivy Nile, Maxine Dupree, Ivy Nile looked like she was all business, and there's nothing wrong with that, not at all. But Maxine Dupree was all smiles. She continued to look over to Ivy. Ivy usually has a little bit of a grin, a smile as well, but she was not showing any of that. She was, again, all business, and so be it. She wants her tag title opportunity, and I get that. The match took place, obviously. Maxine was the one who lost it for them, I guess you could say. Took the finisher with Zoe and Shayna Baszler, both taking her out for the 1-2-3. Ivy Nile was not pleased. Rightfully so. Kind of fed up. I guess you could say that's kind of the look on her face. I'm fed up with you, and I don't know, it looks like they will be no more. When I was already thinking in my mind during the commercial break, I said, it's just a matter of time till Ivy turns on Maxine. It could be as early as, this past Monday night, or maybe the next episode of Raw. But anyway, after commercial break, we see Chad Gable with the Creed brothers. Now, obviously, the Creed brothers, Ivy Nile, long history. They still are together as a semi-faction. I mean, they've been together since the NXT days. 2-3 years. They've been together collectively since Diamond Mine. They were the remaining members. And so, simply stated, the way this ended was they were parting ways because Otis suddenly stepped into the frame with Chad Gable, with Brutus and Julius Creed. And Chad says to them as the Creeds are walking off, think about what I said. Now, Otis, obviously concerned and not really sure about what's going on. He did help Chad get a victory that night. And but obviously, Chad wants really nothing to do with them anymore. He's been very demeaning to them. And so, with that being said, it's going to be very interesting sometime soon. Again, any day now, Ivy Nile is going to attack Maxine Dupree, turn on her, turn heel. We're going to see the Creed brothers, Julius and Brutus, attack Akira Tozawa, attack Otis, inevitably turning heel as well. This is a three-for-all. All of them are turning to the dark side. And so what that means is 3 are out, 3 are in. Otis, Akira, and Maxine, they're out. And now we get this heel stable. I don't know if they're going to still be called Alpha Academy, but we know the leader is going to be Chad Gable, along with the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile. That is one tough, badass team. I'll tell you that. And that is definitely, collectively overall, an obvious upgrade. They're definitely going to do some work because, all mat technicians, really, the Creed brothers, they come out in their singlets ready to go. Chad Gable's done the same for many years to this day. And Ivy Nile, she's tough as nails. And so she's really looking to make an impact in the women's division in WWE. And so I think this slight edge they're going to give them, they've been babyfaces their whole time in WWE, as far as I can recall, pretty much. I know Diamond Mine ran heel a little bit in NXT, but for the most part, they came off as babyfaces. So this may be the chip on their shoulder, the slight edge that they need. I'm here for it. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what unfolds in the coming weeks. But that's pretty much all I got to say about that. And Chad Gable, as good as this is for him, he won't be leaving Saudi Arabia Intercontinental Champion. We know that. So, again, and still, Intercontinental Champion, Sami Zayn. And so that leads us to our 5th and final match of the night. That is for the Undisputed WWE Championship, where we'll see the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, defend his title against the Maverick, Logan Paul, who is the United States Champion. But, as I said earlier on, we found out last Friday on SmackDown that he will not be defending his title. Now, if you want to know why that is the case, which was not disclosed on WWE television, it's because Logan Paul, well, he can't be putting this title on the line because he's walking into SummerSlam with it August 3rd in his hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. Now, will he be walking out of SummerSlam with that title? Personally, I don't think so. That's a different story for another day. I think he'll be dethroned by the likes of probably an LA Knight. It's time for him to get some gold, have a solid mid-card run. But that's, again, that whole Logan Paul and what's going to happen at SummerSlam is for another day. But that is why that title is not on the line, because Cody mentioned this would be a big deal if he were to capture that U.S. title. That will make him a Grand Slam champion. But that will not be taking place. So Cody just has to make sure that he does what's best for him, because it's his title on the line, not Logan Paul's. So that being said, I think it's rather obvious that Cody Rhodes will get the win. I think we're in for a very fun match. I do think this will be a very enjoyable main event. We've seen Logan Paul do great work, namely in Saudi Arabia before. November of 2022 at Crown Jewel, Logan Paul had a pretty solid match up against Roman Reigns. I'm trying to think, actually, when Logan Paul did win the U.S. title, if I think that was the last time they were in Saudi, right? I want to say, again, Crown Jewel of 2023, back in November, I want to say that was when he beat Rey Mysterio for that title. I may be wrong, but I do think that is when that took place, and that's kind of where the friction began with Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio and Carlito getting involved in that whole situation, and now here we are. Not to go off on a separate tangent here, now it's Carlito up against Rey Mysterio because he turned on Rey too, who has not turned on Rey recently in the last 2 years. His own son Dominic turned on him first, before Santos, before Carlito. Many moons ago, Dave Bautista turned on Rey Mysterio. Come to think of it, Rey is clearly the problem. It's not everybody else. It's not all the heels. It must be Rey Mysterio. But anyway, let's get back to this match. So Cody's going to win. I think, though, it may be a disqualification victory for him. I don't see him pinning or making Logan Paul tap out in this match. Now, is he capable of making Logan Paul lose by pinfall? Absolutely. But you also have to remember that Logan Paul is the United States champion, so they're also going to want to protect him. And I think the way this DQ could easily work is, per usual for a Logan Paul match, somebody slips him the brass knuckles. I mean, shoot, that's what he ended up using to win the United States Championship against Rey Mysterio back in the fall. And so why wouldn't he try to do that yet again to win the main title, right? The most prestigious prize in all of WWE. So that's what I could see happening. The referee catching Logan Paul, either using the brass knuckles on Cody Rhodes or making the attempt to do so, and the ref puts a stop to that. It's over. Cody gets the victory. He goes home back to the U.S. with his title. The U.S. champion goes back to the U.S. with his title. Either way, because he's not defending it. And so that's that. And still, the undisputed WWE champion, Cody Rhodes. And that's pretty much it for King and Queen of the Ring as far as my predictions are concerned. So, folks, enjoy the show. I hope you enjoyed this predictions and preview episode for this Saturday. Enjoy that show. Enjoy SmackDown as well. Hopefully that will be I know it's going to be a very good semifinal matchup between Nia Jax and Bianca Belair. And for the men, of course, Randy Orton and Tama Tonga. And so we shall see. So as always, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I am your host, Pat Deneen, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.